The Escapists, a video game created in 2014 and was covered by some of the biggest creators on the platform at the time. It involves you playing as an inmate and simply trying to escape prison. Sounds easy, but you're wrong. This game has a lot of items, and I mean a lot of items. You need to collect these items in order to craft tools like keys and pickaxes or shovels in order to escape, and anything during these escapes that can go wrong will go wrong. To get this platinum and the 100% completion, I need to escape all 6 default prisons and 3 extra DLC prisons. On top of all of this, I have to complete RNG trophies that make me want to shoot myself as they're so annoying. So with all of that, let us begin the tutorial, since I haven't touched this game in over a year. We begin this prison break by taking a screwdriver and opening the vents, going into someone's cells and purchasing soap from them in order to craft a sock mace, one of the first weapons we'll use. We beat this guard up and steal his uniform. We go outside into a tunnel and dig our way out of the prison, getting our first trophy in the game. After escaping, we can finally start the real first prison in this game, Center Perks. Also, for reference, my character's name is John because I like using the name. Anyway, we wake up in the bed and the warden sends me a letter that had way too many words for my dyslexic ass to read, so I continued on to roll call. If you didn't know what roll call was, it's extremely important as it happens twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, and you have to be there unless you want the prison to go in lockdown and then you're in solitary confinement. So in short, you can't miss roll call. So after roll call, I ignored lunch and wanted to get my intelligence leveled up, mainly for 2 reasons. One reason being there's a trophy connected to getting 80 intelligence, but another reason is you need high intelligence to craft high level tools. So if I don't want to be using plastic knives to escape, I'm going to be needing to level this up. Eventually I got very bored and decided to make a bed dummy for some reason, which is very simple as you just need 2 pillows and a bed sheet to make a bed dummy. This is a small step in a big escape, as in the night you need to have a bed dummy so the guards know you're there and sleeping and not escaping. So I crafted the bed dummy and got a trophy for crafting an item. In the afternoon, I realized I was employed in the laundry department, so I made my way to clean everyone's clothes, including the police or the guards' clothes. There is also a trophy related to doing every single job, so I was slowly making my way with this one. Then after that job, I began my real one, being a Discord mod on the internet, eventually getting level 80 intelligence, and thus a trophy. The rest of the day consisted of me grinding in the gym and snooping in people's desks until I eventually had my desk searched. Oh god damn it. And since I was absolutely hoarding a ton of contraband, I landed myself in the slammer, forcing me to restart the day. So I did that whole day over again and nothing really changed. But on day 4 I said enough was enough and I was gonna make my escape. So I stashed a ton of plastic knives outside near the fence, where I was going to start cutting, and stole a guard's uniform from work. That concluded my preparations for escape, and I waited for roll call to finish. And when it became lights out, I used the hole in the front door to get outside and started cutting the fence and allowing me to escape Center Perks. Next up is a prison in Poland, and this place has upgraded security involving an electric fence. So if I don't want to die when trying to cut the fence, I'm going to have to find a way to turn it off. On the first day at this prison, I started working the guarding position and collecting weeds the whole time. Then I started collecting items for a cup of molten chocolate, which is going to be very useful later on. You may also find a trend in the beginning of every prison where I level up my intelligence, so here's that for this prison. And when I got 80 intelligence, I headed off to roll call where I saw a decent deal from someone's shop for getting duct tape. That resulted in me getting a trophy for actually purchasing something from their shop. A few days had passed and nothing really happened except me hoarding a ton of lighters and me making some putty. You see, I need to find myself a guard who has a red key in order to make a copy of it. This will allow me in the night to enter the room with the generator so I can turn it off and begin cutting the fence to make my grand escape. To do this, I recruited some fellow inmates in order to target a random guard and eventually find the person who has the red key and write their name down. Luckily, I actually found the person with the red key first try. Unfortunately for me though, I actually died while trying to get it. Or well, the guards found out about my little shenanigans and placed me in solitary confinement. That left me to either restart all my progress on day 7, or restart the game and try again. and I think it's quite obvious which one I did. With this new red key, I decided to make my grand escape today, as I was able to make a very good wire cutter a few days ago for the fence, so I just waited till roll call to hatch my plan. But when I started going to bed for lights out, I changed into my guard's uniform and made my slow way there to the generator, dodging a few guards that were walking around that could have spotted me. Finally, I turned it off, and you only get a few seconds before it comes back on, so I was really trying to get that fence cut up really fast, since I did not have enough durability for a second try. Luckily for me, I probably over-prepared, and I was able to get another trophy for escaping the second prison. Remember those fences I've kept on cutting up? Yeah, the next place is decided to do a Donald Trump and completely replace the fence with a very large wall. This means I'm gonna have to be a little bit more creative with my next prison escape. Of course, here I did the normal. Looked through some people's desks, got some intelligence, and soon enough was able to make a shovel. With this, I can now get past the big wall, but the real question is, how do I even get there? You see, I'm going to need to go through the vents, and this is going to allow me to get to the roof, so I can jump down to the ground and get to the fence in the wall. So let's get started in trying to break that vent. To do that, I'm going to first need to get some files, and then I can start chipping away at the vent. But there's a big issue, as I can't just remove the whole vent, as any guard is going to realize when they look in my cell there's a big hole in my ceiling. So I'm going to create a fake vent out of some paper mache, and when I place this on my old hole in the roof, I can get a trophy. However, the guards were very smart and decided to segregate the vents, meaning I'm going to have to get a lot more files to access the roof. And every time I leave the vent, my cover loses a bit of health, so I can be a little bit smart with it. While getting the files, I gifted a total of 50 people stuff and got myself a trophy. The next day, I cut the rest of the walls in the vents and got access to the roof, meaning I could start the escape tonight. When lights out hit, I placed my bed dummy and got into the vents, going all the way through until I reached the roof, and quickly avoided the spotlights that were going to be very bad if I was spotted, and made my way to the very edge, where I climbed down with a sheet rope. With my guard uniform equipped, no one was suspicious, and I slowly walked around the prison, where I believed I found eventually the perfect place to start cutting the fence without being spotted, and soon after started digging my escape. Fear flowed down my body as I thought, with all the guards patrolling, will they see me? And when did the snipers wake up, since I have absolutely no idea, as they could just end the escape instantly. Luckily, I had around 6 hours, so there was tons of time, and I didn't need to worry, and managed to escape this place, getting another trophy and completely completing his prison. Next up is Jungle Compound, and it's personally my favorite, mainly because it's a jungle, and you would hear this every 2 minutes on PC. Sadly, we don't have a Jeep on the PS4 port, so RIP Jeep, it will be missed. So, Jungle Compound. This place is split up into 2 sections, the sleeping quarters, and then the everything else area. Very simple, as you can see. But separating these 2 areas is this metal detector, which is very bad, as it's going to prevent me from moving contraband. But in the meantime, we are very stupid, and I'm gonna have to raise my intelligence again. And once I eventually got a suitable amount, I started chipping this wall. I'm doing this in order to get access to an unlimited supply of timber and sheet metal. But as right now, the canteen doesn't have enough forks for me to chip this wall, and I don't have a poster to cover it, so we're gonna have to wait for the next day to do that. On day 2, I raided the canteen's fork supply and completely demolished the wall and put a poster down, allowing me to have access to this little room where I started digging a hole, since this prison has a lot of these high walls, and I'm going to try and dig a very long tunnel to get out of this initial starting area of the prison. Besides that, I ran out of forks again, trying to do the other wall, and began collecting stuff for eventually a shovel and a contraband pouch so I can get between the 2 sections. The rest of the day, I increased my intelligence and made those 2 things I mentioned earlier. That brings us to day 3, where I searched more people's desks, chopped at the wall again, and the hole. Surprisingly, I found that plastic spoons are basically useless at digging holes, but plastic forks are very effective for some odd reason. That reminds me, in order to escape this place, I gotta forge myself a passport. In order to do that, I'm going to need 3 special items: a special feather, some ink, and an exit pass. 2 of these I can get inside the prison, But the exit pass is in the guard's sleeping quarters, which is outside in a secure place behind a red key door or a bamboo wall you can break. This all means for the next few days I gotta keep my eye on the lookout for this feather, as it's kinda rare to find in people's desks. Continue on with the day. I maxed out my shovel, getting it to level 3, and that's about it. So let's move on to day 4, where I continued digging the hole with plastic spoons, and finally got into the timber and sheet metal area, allowing me to get an infinite supply of these resources. On this day, I used my contraband pouch to start moving my contraband to this corridor that only I have access to, so I can use this stuff for when I escape, and rarely start to dig this hole. But before I really start digging, I need to make it to roll call, cutting it a little bit close. Shortly after that, I started digging again, getting through 3 of the 9 tiles I have to get through in this hole. Every 3 tiles I dig, I had to create myself a wooden brace to prevent the tunnel from caving in and allowing me to continue digging. Thanks to me having access to the infinite timber, this is a very easy task. The real issue is, what do I do with the dirt? I can't just give it to the guards or they'll send me into solitary, so I'll have to be a little bit creative with how I dispose of this, by simply giving it to my fellow inmates and making them slightly hate me. And after a little bit more digging later on, we get up to 5 tiles, which is all I can do on day 4. This brings us to day 5, where I decided to get out of here, and use my gold shovel to clear all 9 tiles. And I crafted myself a guard's uniform, while also being very lucky in finding myself a feather, meaning I had everything to escape and create the passport. So all I have to do now is wait for roll call to make my escape. Just before roll call started, I placed my sleeping dummy and got everything I needed. The feather, the guard's uniform, some chocolate to reduce my fatigue, and ink also for the passport. Before roll call ended, I made my way to the hole, and when it reached midnight, I began digging out. When I made it to the top, I quickly covered the hole in case any guard patrols were there, and made my way to the guard sleeping quarters, where I used my shovel to bust a hole in this building and check the desk with the security camera spotting me and not caring to finally get the passports and documents I needed. This meant I could go to the bottom of the prison, give my documents in at the checkpoint, and then just leave this place, getting a trophy for escaping this prison. Next up is San Pancho, a prison located in Mexico. This institution is filled with some of the worst prisoners, and the guards here are way too scared to actually enforce the law, let them actually just be in the proximity of the area, meaning that I'm going to be against the wrath of the other prisoners who are very overpowered, and there'll be a few more problems that I'll have to face when trying to escape in this hellhole. Nonetheless, let's begin with this prison. I start off by searching all my fellow inmates' desks in order to find some random stuff, since we also live in a, I guess, shared compartment with 4 people. That means I'm going to have to not bring that much attention to my cellmates so they don't snitch on me if I try and escape. Otherwise, the main goal for now was just to get as much contraband as I could that would be useful for making shovels, pickaxes, and etc. And I do that until it's job time, where I actually have a job again, just taking out the weeds. Once I completed that, I went back to the library since we need to get our intelligence up a lot. And that's just about all that happened on day 1. I spent a lot of time getting my intelligence up, and that lasted even into day 2. On this day, something interesting did happen. I quit my job, or well, rather I got fired from my job. That's okay, I didn't really want that job anyway. Instead, I wanted Ricky's job, and the only way I could do this is beat him up and put him in solitary confinement, and then hit him once and make him chase me around for around 7 hours. I'm a good person. With Ricky now being retired from the tailor position, this meant I could apply and get the job, meaning I have access to this new area. Here I start chipping the wall again with my plastic forks, since I want to start digging in this corridor area to eventually make a hole and the start of my escape. But I can only chip through this wall and finish it off on day 3, where I started to begin my tunnel. Everything was going great, I was making quick progress, until the boulder showed up. This big ass rock is a very big issue. I have a shovel, as you can tell, and this shovel is going to do nothing against that rock. So this means I've had to use my resources in this prison to try and craft a pickaxe. Luckily I had enough contraband to make a pickaxe, and can simply now break the rock. How do I break a rock then? The damn pickaxe didn't work. I've now wasted so much contraband on this pickaxe. I have to just own it up and go around the darn rock, making me waste 2 whole tiles worth of durability on my shovel. I took a step back and started to chip away at this fence here, since it's going to be quite important for what I'm going to find down in that hole. Eventually concluding the third day, day 4, a lot more digging, and I mean a lot more digging, and also another damn boulder. God damn it. A round we have to go and more contraband being wasted on this. However, at least throughout this day, I got a trophy for spending 20 prison hours in the shower. Nothing else really happened, bringing us to day 5. Well, while digging, I found myself some landmines. That's pretty cool. And that's about it. Time for day 6. We're on day 6. I found myself at the very end of the hole, hitting myself a indestructible wall. And while walking back to my cell, I accidentally misclicked, making me try and dig out of my hole in the middle of daytime, causing me to go to solitary confinement. And I wasn't gonna deal with that, so I just restarted the day. It also turns out we're now on day 7, which is the escape day for some reason. Don't know where the other recording is when I read it today, but that's fine, since when roll call finished, I went towards my hole and equipped everything. Don't worry, I didn't forget to place the sleeping dummy. I equipped myself a max level pickaxe, a max level shovel, and a spike trap, since there's a jeep above us, and I'm going to have to hear when it goes away, and pop the jeep's tires to allow me to escape. So when I heard the jeep quickly go past me, I decided it was time, and began digging. When I finished digging, I got a trophy for 50 towers dug out. Perfect timing, I will say. I made a run to the left side, dropping my spike trap, and avoiding the landmines, eventually getting to the bottom left of the map, where I quickly started chipping away against the 2 walls. And soon enough, the last wall was completely destroyed, allowing me to escape this prison. Next up is HMP Iron Gate, which is the hardest prison in the base game. Here there are cameras in every single cell, making it very difficult to steal from fellow prisoners' desks. There are also metal detectors absolutely everywhere, meaning I'm either gonna have to have a lot of contraband pouches or just be running from the guards the whole time. At this point, while looking over the whole prison, I decided that I'm gonna try and get all my stats max on this prison, since it's also the hardest one. So I started doing this by getting my health and fitness up in the gym. I also tried getting some contraband from my fellow prisoners' desks, but the security camera kept spotting me, and the guards then proceeded to beat me up for trying to steal from people. I started doing these suicide runs where I would go into people's desks, take their contraband, place it in my desk, and then die and repeat. I kept it up until dinner, when I remembered I had a quest here. So, I distracted the guards at dinner, and got myself a trophy for earning a total of 1,000 coins across all prisons. Shortly it became roll call, and that ended day 1. For both day 2 and day 3 I increased my strength and fitness, and searched desks. Eventually, I got one item that was really useful for me, basil wood. You see, this prison's on an island, and I need to get myself a raft. In order to craft this raft, I need basil wood. This is a great find, and I'm going to need a few more in order to make that raft. I'm also going to skip over to day 6, since I kind of lost some of the recording for the previous days. Basically, I got enough of the basil wood, made myself a raft, and now need a red key, since my whole plan is to use the red key to kind of fight my way out of prison. And since I have all my stats max level, that means I'm kind of overpowered. So I started taking out guards looking for that red key, and trying to make the prison let me out. I also began looking for some timber to make myself some nunchucks since they're pretty overpowered. And after a bit of killing more guards, lockdown started, which means all the prisoners are going to go into their cells. And there's too many guards that have been knocked out, the whole prison's being like shut down for temporarily. And if I don't get out of here in around 2 minutes 30 seconds, things gonna be pretty bad for me. Soon enough though, I knock a guard with a red key, which is very good news. I can now make myself a fake and try and get out of here. I go get my raft and start heading out to the exit when I realize there's a big issue. The front door isn't open, and I need to kill a few more guards. And lockdown just ended, with the guard towers shooting me again. This is not good at all. I knock out a ton of guards in this courtyard area I have control of, but I still need more guards here. Sadly, my key broke as I was trying to find more. This is extremely bad as there's no guard with a red key, and I'm basically stuck here waiting until one guard with a red key comes over. And with my luck, no guards do, and the whole lockdown ends, meaning I'm stuck here dealing with the sniper constantly shooting at me, where eventually I get put into solitary confinement, and I have to reset the day to try again. On one of my attempts, everything went great. I even stole a red key, but the guards took me back to solitary confinement since I stole a key. I was so close. And I knew that it was very much possible. And then on my third attempt, I had this run where I absolutely knocked every single guard in a line. I eventually found the red key and made my escape. I even stole the red key and didn't get punished. And when I finally made it to the dock, I used my raft to escape, getting myself an achievement for escaping all the prisons, and of course another achievement for escaping HMP Iron Gate. With all the game's base prisons done, I can now move on to the DLC prisons, with these usually having around 6 trophies in each one. The first DLC prison I did was the Escape Team, which is a play on the hit 1983 A-Team. Here there are a total of 4 prisoners including yourself, and you and your 3 comrades have to escape this prison in a big tank. But before you do that, you need to go repair the tank itself and basically find all the pieces around the map that will allow you to fix it up. On day 1, I started checking my 3 friends' desks and found some aftershade, and saw that I needed to give this to my friend Andy for a trophy. For the rest of day 1, I got my intelligence up, my strength and fitness, since I think I'm going to probably need to beat up a few guards in this prison. And that's about it. It brings us to roll call, where then I went back to bed for day 2. On this day, I continued leveling up my stats, and eventually also found some stuff in these empty desks for a molten hot chocolate. With this hot chocolate, I knocked out a guard in order to get his guard's uniform and baton to beat other guards up. We also had a taper, which would be useful in repairing the tank. It was getting to a point that there was so much contraband that I had to store it all in the toilets, which was interesting at least. Other than that, I spent the rest of the day getting my strength up, and that's about it. On day 3, I found myself murdering another guard who had a mixing container that I could use in the future for the tank. I also just realized this whole thing is just a collectathon in order to make the tank, so I might skip towards a more important moment. Like when I made a makeshift fuse out of that tapper, or taper, I don't know what the hell to call this thing, tapper, taper, all the same. Skipping to day 5, I found myself a red key from one of the guards, since I started to suspect that these crates were the ones I needed to look at that had all the stuff I needed. And they were locked behind various door colors, which means I need to get a lot of these keys to get them. I used my red key to get into the guard's sleeping quarters and search a desk with 3 more items I needed. However, there was one desk that wasn't really reachable, so I'm going to have to use a pickaxe to break the wall and search it later on. Besides that, I got myself a guard's uniform and went through this door, getting myself some charcoal. Eventually, I broke into this place and got the potassium that was in the desk, and had to dig my way out, since my red key wasn't good enough to get myself all the way. This meant I could use this thing whenever I wanted to. Not sure why I would, but I could. I also took a quick peek on the roof, but that didn't go well. I was also very lost in what to do, and eventually got myself a green key in order to go to this random place for work to find myself the final bit of equipment or contraband to craft everything I needed for the tank. I used the potassium fertilizer and the charcoal to make an explosive mixture, since it was a lot less contraband to hold, and put it in the toilet for the time being. We also crafted an explosive round, and finally we got ourselves a tank cover, which should be everything that I need. Actually no, it's not. I need to make the damn barrel. Hold on. There we go. That's everything we need. I also want to quickly say there are 2 trophies that the OBS or whatever recording I used did not work, such as Cage Buddy for giving the Sovereign Ring to Cage, and the Madman for gifting the trash bag to Sean. These are things that didn't pop for some, well, they did pop, but they didn't show. So, yeah, here they are. At this point in time, I had basically everything to escape and started placing everything in the tank, and got a trophy for placing the turrets. And when I finally placed the fuse in the tank, we saw the ending, and me and my friends shot ourselves out of here. We also got another trophy for escaping with over 100 or 80 favor on every single inmate. This means the escape team is all done, and now I can do duct tapes are forever. This prison is very much connected to the James Bond type of movies, and trying to be a secret agent. Here we have to collect enough items or contraband to escape inside of a rocket. Let's start off with a normal on day 1 and start leveling my stats up a lot. Like for the whole day a lot. And soon enough, it was the next day. Well, I actually got a trophy for reading the manual on how to actually escape this place with the rocket, and it seems like we've got a few things I'm gonna need to get. To start this collecting, I beat up God on day 3, finding a henchman's memoir tape that'll probably be useful. I also made a copy of that key for safekeeping. On day 4, I found a few more items in this desk and got myself a cyan key in order to go into this location here for another few desks, and a trophy for sitting on the evil chair. Sadly for me, the actual important desk I needed was locked behind a big wall, so we'll have to get some pickaxes later on again. I also used the green key to get into this place for another item. I will say it's very much feeling like these maps are very similar for the DLCs, and it's, yeah, just collecting stuff. That's around it. On the same day, I got myself a pickaxe, so that's pretty good for breaking down that wall I was talking about earlier. The next day, we used that pickaxe to start breaking into the desk, and eventually got the stuff that I needed from there. After that, I began crafting everything I needed, like the fingerprint, and made myself a fake fingerprint reader. I went out again, got myself a red key, searched the desk for more items, crafted these items into useful stuff I can actually escape. Oh wait, that's all of them. Okay, now I can go escape on the rocket, which is what I'm gonna do right now. It appears they do not like me going in this area, and I get 3 trophies for placing all the equipment in their designated area. For some reason I'm looking at it, there's trophies for all of them. And that's me escaping. We latch onto the rocket and then get out of this evil base, getting the very final trophy of this DLC for escaping this place, meaning duct tapes forever is all done. And hello Santa's sweatshop. In this prison we've been kidnapped by Santa himself to make toys for him in this new elf re-education facility, he calls it. To escape this place, I'm going to need to place a ton of presents under the Christmas tree and gain the trust of the reindeers to backstab Santa himself. So on the first day, we do the usual, gain intelligence, and make my stats go up. To think, this is the final prison I have to increase my stats on. Wow. On this day, I also had to clean a reindeer poop and got a trophy for that, so that's cool. The next interesting thing that happened to me was using firecrackers to one-shot the guard and to steal his uniform. With this uniform, I beat another guard and got myself a cyan key, since I'm going to be needing it later on again. It's also important to note that I got a trophy for listening to a kid in the visitation area. For some reason on the next day I found myself a Christmas chest where I could get some of the stuff I needed, which I actually had nothing. God damn it. At least while using the sign key I had access to this room, where I can use the desk to get this lever. However, looking at the generator in the back, I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to use this in the future. Spoiler alert, I searched it up 5 minutes later and found out I'm gonna have to use it to get one of the final chests of stuff. I have to now get myself a yellow key to escape my cell in the night and make some cutters since I have to break a fence. Let's not forget the fake fence there, since you can't just leave a big hole in the fence. I still have to actually, you know, hide it to make sure the guards aren't suspicious. So, on the night of day 8, I make my grand plan in order to get this last chest of stuff. When lights out happened, I quickly switched the generator off and ran to the fence where I needed to start cutting. Unfortunately, I wasn't fast enough and the fence was 25 HP, meaning I had to go down and turn the generator off again. So I could finish the fence off, quickly loot this chest to get some of these fancy lights, and place the fake fence down to get out of here. And soon enough, I made it back to my cell to save the game and have a good night's sleep. The last thing I needed was the red key in order to get to the guards' sleeping quarters and find one of the last chests there to actually escape this prison. With the glitter now being acquired, this means I can do a full-on crafting session in my cell. Soon enough, I had everything I needed to escape. I quickly ran to the Christmas tree and placed my tinsel down for an achievement. Then the fairy lights, then the presents, to finally escape taking the reindeers and getting the hell out of this place. Getting the trophy for escaping this place. This now means I've escaped every single prison, but there's still a lot of miscellaneous trophies I need to collect now. One of these was spending 30 days without any clothes on. In order to do this, I actually just used a spoon out in the open with no clothes on to actually just keep digging and getting sent to solitary confinement, since for some reason the days I added on actually count up to the total, I guess, like counter. Another one I got was Man on the Run, which I had to get 100 heat and then make it go all the way down to 0. So I just sat in my cell the whole time to do this. I also knocked out 50 inmates, which was pretty fun. One of the more longer ones was crafting every single item. Luckily for me, I did a lot of crafting since I did all the DLC and normal prisons, meaning this was pretty easy. One of the worst things I ever did was this trophy for looking at 100 visitors. This took me 30 minutes. And I want to be alone. Now, some of the trophies I'm going to be talking about had the footage corrupted or lost. I don't know, they're not here. Some of them are going to be like the Wet Bandit, in which I had to spend 30 minutes of my life continuously flushing down random stuff in toilets hoping they would flood. This is just absolutely lovely. Disrespect My Authority is another, which I knocked out 50 guards. Let's Get Physical was for me getting 80 strength in both speed and strength. Wait, I mean stat points, not strength. That didn't make sense. All by myself was me spending 20 days in solitary confinement. And finally, Jobs Worth, which involved me spending a few hours going and getting all the jobs in other prisons and stuff. This trophy was not fun. Luckily for me, the last trophy I needed was actually recorded, and I need to get 100 favors completed, meaning I completely finished this game and got the platinum trophy, which didn't record. I love PlayStation, thank you so much. Well, that's a platinum and 100% of the Escapists. Overall, it's a really good game and it brought me back to my youth when I used to upload videos on this game. Also, if this video gets like, let's say 100 likes, I'll platinum the Escapist too. I bet you there's no chance of that happening though. So anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.